Thank you for joining me, Ted. Can you please tell sort of the audience, those who don't already know you, sort of what you do and sort of your relationship to culture change and leadership?
Nowadays, what I'm doing is I teach the F.L.Y workshops all around the world. F.L.Y is a method of self-expression, and I teach it in faculties, universities, schools. And what I started is to introduce the F.L.Y method into the education system. I started in Israel and in India, and I hope that it will spread to other countries as well.
Excellent. So, unless you have more to add to that introduction, it's totally fine. Let's get right into the interview questions, which some of them will be repetitions for you since we started this interview before. Okay, so the first one is, what are the most significant challenges you face in transforming workplace culture and leadership within your organization or those of your clients?
When you introduce something new, when we are doing the same as other did before, it's much easier because there are books, there are guidelines, there are people that done it before. But when you are trying to introduce something new, you have to be the example of this new system, new era, new method, new something. And in the beginning, it's very crucial to understand that there is one human being. It probably usually starts with one human being, and then if it catches, it has to multiple itself. And I find itself quite difficult, to delegate the essence to other people, so other people could do what I'm doing. You see, because I won't be able to teach F.L.Y all over the globe only by myself. It can be. So now I'm in the process of finding the right people and introducing and educating them with the F.L.Y method, so they would be my delegates around the globe.
So regarding that, it reminds me of something not specifically related to what you do with your F.L.Y artistic method, but also with, there's something called hung or hung, which is actually a type of drum. It's commonly known as hang drum. And it was produced, I believe, in Switzerland by the inventors of the product. And it's a dome-shaped, it's like, the steel drums of the Caribbean. So they're like that, except they're actually shaped, positively curved rather than negatively. And they tried, when they first invented them, to train people to make the same thing, as trainees, as apprentices, and they struggled with it. And as far as I know, that company is no longer exists, or they stopped doing them, but other people have trained themselves, right? So they came up with a great idea. It's beautiful, it's amazing. And yeah, unless you put in the time and love to, as you said, find the right candidates to spread what you're doing, that cultural change, that new idea, if it's really good, people will take it up. But if you want it to be yours, if you want it to be what you mean it to be, it's really important to sort of give it that love it needs, I think.
The great debate that we had when I'm speaking with some people around me that helped me with F.L.Y. So the question was how to call this method. And there were two options. One is the Ted Barr method, which is me that founded it, and the second is F.L.Y. And I said that it's better to call it F.L.Y. I didn't want it to be identified only with me. You see, because I'm here. I hope that I live till in the edition it said till 120, but eventually I won't be here. You see, but I hope that what I left behind will remain. My writings, my ideas, the F.L.Y method would remain. And it won't be Ted Barr, it would be F.L.Y.
Right. I understand that. Actually, that reminds me of a little thing that I was told many years ago from one of my science teachers. And that is, if you're a scientist, now this applies to many things, including what you do. if you discover something, if you name it yourself, chances are it will sort of be could be dissociated from you. Whereas if you don't name it, we're talking about, say, like, Gaussian distribution. A lot of scientists have become immortal in name, at least to other scientists, simply because they didn't name that which they discovered and left it for other people to name. So that's an interesting thing. But I agree with you that it should be something that goes beyond just the name of the inventor, but lives sort of on its own. So the next question then is,
I would like to add to that
oh, please
I
do.
wrote in one of my articles that a great innovation can be done by an individual, but a revolution is a collective effort.
Agreed. The best idea in the world, not shared or spread, is just an obscure footnote, if it's even that.
Absolutely.
So the next one then is, could you describe a recent situation where you felt that your leadership team or the leadership team of your clients could have benefited from additional training or guidance with respect to culture building, leadership, or both?
I can think of one example from the army. I don't know
Okay.
if it's related here, but I'm from Israel, so I definitely spend, unfortunately, a lot of my time in the army. In Israel, men are doing reserve. They spend time in the reserve till the age of 48 or 50 sometimes. So so there was, and I was a deputy a battalion commander in the artillery, and we had a certain kind of it was like a semi-battle that I understood that we as artillery people cannot cope with the needs or the demands that this battle bring to us. You see, because we weren't trained. It wasn't our training to deal with what we dealt. We were artillery people, but we were summoned by a higher officer to do something else. And then I realized that in order to function the best, it doesn't matter if it's in the army or in a company, you need to know exactly what your capabilities are. And if you don't have these capabilities, you have to be trained to do this mission that you're summoned to. You see, you cannot say to artillery people to conquer a hill because they are not trained to do that. You cannot. Right. You won't say to marketing people in a company to write a code because they are not trained to do that. Right. As you won't say to code people that writing code in a high-tech company to market what they are writing or their product. You see?
Yeah.
And yeah, I find these training sessions very crucial in a lot of companies, and companies are falling, especially companies that are in a high, in a place of that they are from very small companies, they turn to be big companies, and this is the most dangerous period. You see, this growth period is very dangerous because you need more investments, more people to recruit more people and more skilled people. And then if you're not doing it correctly and you don't train the people correctly, you can fall.
Right. And that actually aligns with the first one of these interviews I did, and that was Marcy Gundry. She said something interesting about it. She says, we take people who are great at their jobs, we reward them by promoting them, which ultimately leads to a leadership position, especially if they're, continue to get better and they continue to improve. But then it's surprising how many companies hadn't really considered exactly what you're talking about here. That is, we put them in a leadership position, but we didn't teach them how to lead. So then they are far more likely to quit or basically drown. And she identified some of the sort of solutions to that. But we promote people. There was a famous book, I don't even know who wrote it, but it's called The Peter Principle. And it's based on the idea that most companies promote people to the level of their incompetence. And if they're good, that means they're promoted until they hit leadership, and they usually hit a glass ceiling and maybe falter because, again, don't expect what was the position you were in? You were gunners in the military. You were a gunner in the military?
And in the artillery.
Artillery, right. Teaching somebody how to do artillery, don't expect them to do, ground operations outside of that purview unless you train them to do so. Just like you said, same here. You rise somebody to a leader. If they are not good leaders because they have no leadership training and you haven't trained them, you as the higher level leader, that's your responsibility. If they don't know how to do it and they fail, it's your fault for not teaching them how to do it.
Yeah, leadership is something, it's a totally different issue. I don't know if you want to speak about that, but, in the Israeli army, in the officer course, and I was in the basic officer course, and then I was in platoon commander courses, then I went in battalion commander course. And then the leadership aspect is the core issue of this course. The leadership aspect. And the leadership aspect has many, it spreads to many fields. It's not only to know more, it's to lead. I think we spoke about it in our previous discussion, is to lead by example. This is the number one rule of leadership, to lead by example. You cannot say something to a person and don't act. You have to walk your talk and to be there and to stand behind your words. And to lead people and to show them the way, you yourself. For example, when I was with my soldiers and we had a morning run, I ran with them. When we had when we needed to do a mission, I was there with them.
Well, and it's funny because leaders who don't get that don't realize why, or I think the main effect of leaders who aren't willing to walk their own talk, to lead by example, they're really not respected by those they lead, because it's like they're telling me to do this, but they either can't, won't, or couldn't be bothered to do what they expect us to do. And, that's not going to lead to great results. At least that's what the research and history says. So the next question then is, what specific outcomes would you hope to achieve through training in leadership and culture building?
The main thing is to deliver a clear message. And I would say it again, to deliver a clear message. I'm not saying to deliver a good message or a bad message. I'm speaking about clear message. You see, because if it's not clear, so people would start to ask questions. If you need that a mission would be done in a certain time and you are not clear, the time that you spend on explaining what you meant would miss everything. You see, so just to be clear, the pre-step, the step before clearance is that it has to be clear to you. You have to be absolutely clear with yourself what you're going to do. Who are you? What is your mission? Who is the company? What is the best way to involve all the people in that mission? And I think that great leaders and great companies are those that manage to bring it all together and to cause the people, the workers in the company, to identify with the company core essence.
It's sort of a trivial example, but it's also a real example. Like you said, first of all, if you can't clearly explain something to me as a teacher, as an English teacher, that says you don't really understand it. So oftentimes here in Japan, they have this, I think I talked to you about this last time, but it's called tatemae and honne. So tatemae means your public face, your sort of polite decorum and conduct you have in public and around others. And honne is your true feelings. And because of that and other cultural things, they try very hard to make sure they don't lose face and to always be polite and everything else, which is admirable in one sense and a barrier in another. And that is, I would teach even like a C-suite executives. It's still just English, but it's very important that they understand it if they're ever going to use it, especially with their job. So, because everybody understand, if I just ask a yes, no question, I see this and that smile with a silence and a head shake is kind of Japanese for something like, I think so, or I don't really know, but I'm not going to say so. So what I did was, it relates very much to what you said. I was like, great, since you understand it, please demonstrate that by using it. Even just make a sentence with that word or explain that to us as the class. Now you're the teacher and you instantly know who understood and who didn't. But it's the same thing, right? If you don't understand the message, if you can't explain it clearly, you're not ready because you don't have the depth of understanding you need to pass that on to others. So
Yeah,
totally
absolutely.
agree.
I think that I told you that, I think that we spoke about it in our first conversation. I'm learning Japanese right now.
Ah, you
I told you
did.
I thought I'm learning Japanese, and what I found out is that the Japanese language and the Japanese people are totally different, 180 degrees different from Israelis. You see,
Interesting.
I learned that, for example, in Japan there are 5, 6 ways of polite, very polite, very polite, and absolute polite. In
Yes.
Hebrew, Israelis are very straightforward, and they're saying exactly what they think. Sometimes, for example, if you're an Israeli would come to Japan and would behave like in Israel, it would be considered rude immediately,
Mm-hmm.
to be rude. But sometimes sometimes if you are straightforward and you say exactly what you think and don't try to hide behind the bush and tell other stories, it helps to be clear, you see?
Yes.
For example, and I think that it derives, all this thing of being straightforward derives from the army, because all the Israelis are doing the army. And in the army, you cannot bullshit. You cannot start to tell stories in the middle of a fight, of a battle. You need to be clear. You need to say exactly what to do, and in very few words, you
Mm-hmm.
see? I think it comes from there. I don't know.
Right.
Because
Well,
definitely it's not from the Jewish tradition. The Jewish tradition is to speak a lot and to have debates about the Bible, Gemara, all thing. But
right.
the army is the other side of it.
It's interesting the interaction there between the two different sort of forces, the Jewish religious tradition against the military, where you need, as you said, clear and concise directions, because anything else could mean lives lost. So here in Japan, you're right, they do have those different levels. I believe the highest one is called Koge, and they were so important in history that if you, as an ordinary citizen in Japan, use the wrong form of address to, say, a shogun, they had little hesitation and every right to decapitate you on the spot because you used the wrong form. So mainly, say, I don't know if this is Koge because I just don't know enough about Japanese language, but you might be called Ted-sama or Barr-sama. Sama is one of the most polite forms that you usually get as a customer, especially in sort of a higher class, a department store or something. It's like a green sama, right? They'll call you it like you said, it's just they have these conscious layers, and it's interesting because English has it too, but it's never explicit. But calling somebody Mr. or Mrs. is a less prescribed version of that, but it does exist, especially in business. So let's do the next one here. Number 4 is.
I would add something to that. I think Israel is a very interesting, considering the fact that there is those religious people that learn the Bible all the time, and they're keeping on moving and learning chapter after chapter with all those rituals. There is the army people, and there is the high-tech people. Israel leads the high-tech in the Middle East and
Mhm.
maybe in Europe. And those three aspects of Israeli people is very interesting because they are so different.
And it would be interesting to find, and maybe that's you, maybe it isn't, but there's probably people who fit in, have their foot in all three circles. They have their biblical scholarship plus their military service, which is mandatory, is it not?
Yes, it is.
Right. And mandatory. So obviously, no matter what you do, you have some military service. And if they happen to be a technical person or work in a technical area when they're in the service, now you got all three. So that would be an interesting interaction to see. So for the next question, in your opinion, what are the key skills and competencies that leaders should possess to create a thriving organizational culture?
First of all, to have a vision. As I said before, not only to have a vision, but to have a clear vision. And to have a clear vision that it would be easy to delegate to his workers and his and the people that are managers in the company to deliver it on. The main aspect of a successful company is people that identify with the core essence of the company. I spoke it before, and it's extremely important, because if you don't identify with the core essence of the company, so you will have your own translation about it, and the other one will have his own translation about it, the other one is translations about it, and it will be chaos, you know? A company should go in a certain way, aligned to the same core, the same essence, the same vision. And if it's so with all the managers and workers, it would be a successful company. Doesn't matter what's in what field.
Mm-hmm. And that's that really resonates with. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the work of Jim Collins, author of Good to Great and a lot of quite famous business books, and a fantastic social scientist. And that's exactly what he talks about. There's a few other books that is sort of like, if everybody kind of knows that the details, to use a military term, the commander's intent, if you know what the larger goal is, much of that minutia, especially when another famous military phrase is, every plan is, even the best laid plans are, was it all plans survive everything but first contact with the enemy. So the idea that in the battlefield, and including in business, it's so dynamic that if there isn't that clear vision you're describing, that people can make real-time decisions, they can't put it up the chain. There's no time. That if everybody knows what the destination is, and vision is exactly the word that Jim Collins uses, then for the most part, they don't need to babysit each other. The hires don't need to babysit the lowers because they're going in the same direction.
I will add another thing to that, and it is that a good manager and a good leader should know when to seek for advice, and it's obvious that you don't know everything, and there are areas that you need assistance, and not to be ashamed and not to be afraid to call for assistance. I think that Hitler lost the war. In the beginning, it was quite unbelievable what happened there, but he wasn't a military man. He wasn't a general himself. He had the fantastic generals that knew exactly what to do, and he needed to tell them what to do, but he didn't have he wasn't capable of doing that, you see. But he was sure that all the truth is with him. He knows everything. He didn't seek for assistance, and this was the end of the German army.
Right. It's interesting because the whole idea, it was actually I can't remember, but it was from a business book, but the whole idea of the principle of commander's intent as now used in a lot of businesses actually came when the Allied forces, the Allied was the US and the West. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, right. Okay, so the Allied had such a problem dealing with the Luftwaffe, I believe it's called. Anyway, the German forces, and one of the reasons was Germany was using commander's intent, so they had that sort of agility on the ground that the Allied forces didn't. So they were slower to respond. And like I said, and now, as as most people in the world, I wasn't exactly in support of the German cause at that time, but their way of doing it using commander's intent was very powerful. And that's what gave them a significant strategic advantage, or so I've read. I don't know anything about military history, but it was interesting. A clear vision gives you the ability to be really agile. So it's an interesting lesson from a complex situation like a battlefield. So the next question then is, what do you think is the ideal duration for a comprehensive course on transforming workplace culture, leadership, or both?
I don't think that there is something that is called an ideal course or ideal time for a course, because it depends. A battalion commander course in Israel, it's about 4 months. Is it enough? I don't know. Can you learn really to be a leader? I think that's something that most of the leaders that I know were born to be leaders, and there's something natural there that certain kind of self-confidence and a certain kind of stamina and their ability to lead people by example, as we saw before. It's something natural that is building with you. You can teach people to know more. You can teach people to have more knowledge about certain kind of aspects that they are doing in a company or in the army. But I don't think that really you can teach them how to be a real. You see, it is something that has to grow within a human being, and then to fulfill this stand of being a leader.
Right. Okay. And yeah, I'm getting a lot of different answers to that question. Some say, in this case, what we found to work is, other ones are saying, forget it, it's an irrelevant question because of exactly the points you cited. It's going to matter the role and the goal. Is like, what is the purpose, and what is the scale? What are you trying to accomplish? That it would be varied by those things.
I'll just tell you, because my son-in-law is now in a very elite troop of infantry troop in Israel, and the duration of their training is about 2 years. It's about 2 years. In the end, all of them would become officers and leaders. All of them, you see, and there are very few. It's not a big but it takes 2 years. You see, and I don't believe in managerial courses or leadership courses that you are coming at 8 o'clock in the morning and at 5 p.m. you are a leader. It doesn't go this way.
Agreed. So this question is related to the one I just asked. So what factors would influence your decision? That is, your decision around what would be a suitable duration. So the answer you just gave me there about the officer training or the leadership training offered to specific elites is a good example of that. So what factors would you say would be most important in terms of deciding?
I think, for example, I can give you an example from my life. When I was an educator or a teacher or a commander in a course like that, I took the soldiers that were with me in the course. I took them to like a hike with certain kind of missions along the way. It's not exactly a walking hike. There are more difficult tasks there in this hike. And from the beginning, you can see who are the people that are there and who are the people that are not there. Who are the people that help? Who are the people that assist? Who are the people that would have the ability to lead, and lead by example, and lead the other friends, and who is not. So I think that if you want really to do something with a group of people, let them work together and then you'll see exactly who is who. And I will relate it to the F.L.Y workshops, because sometimes I give the F.L.Y workshop to companies, and we want something for them to do together. And I have some new workers in the group, and I don't know them, and I would like to weave them together with the group. So they came to my studio and they had a F.L.Y workshop. And in this workshop, you know exactly, because then you're doing things together, and you see who helps another co-worker, and who is doing the things by himself, and who is doing nothing. You see everything.
Yeah, yeah. It is very revealing. You know, that's what a lot of sort of team building, even Robert Cialdini talks about that. He talks about two types of unity, and one is specifically points at military or similar, that is synchronous activities, right? So, you know, you go to a baseball or football game and everybody on the team for that, you know, a specific team has a specific cheer or chant. They clap together, they do gestures together, line dancing, I don't care what it is, but things where people move together in time. And of course, the military analogy of that is marching and moving together. The other one is coordinated activities, which goes very well with what you were talking about, vision. That is, activities, it's like, here's the end goal, go. And that you, as you said, you discover who does what in that situation, where they maybe are not given explicit instructions, just they know where the end is and they have a group to work with. And there's a lot of things revealed and a lot of group cohesion built or disharmony discovered in an environment like that, where they're not given, you know, mindless rules to follow. Just here's the end goal, work together, go.
Yeah, and if we spoke about leaders, you want to find the leader or a true leader, give a group a hard task, a difficult task to do together, and say, okay, now you're the leader, and see how he operates. Now you're the leader, see how he operates. The harder the task is, the greater the chance that you'll find your true leaders in the group.
That makes sense. A lot of sense. And I like it because I'm a science geek. So anything empirically derived, where you don't just do it in theory, you do it in a real circumstance with wicked problems or wicked variables. You know, there is no explicit checklist plan you can use. You have to actually figure it out as you go and adapt as you go. So the next question then is, what formats or delivery methods would be most effective, considering your schedule and learning preferences, or those of your clients?
You know, of course, time-wise, I would prefer Zoom meetings, and I use it a lot, you know, because I'm working, I'm in connection with a lot of people all around the globe, and I'm using Zoom a lot. Leadership-wise, I won't recommend Zoom. I would recommend face-to-face.
Yeah, I get that too. Face-to-face is not the same. It's a different animal, and I can see why there's definite obvious advantages to that, especially in terms of things like nonverbals and being in a physical space with people. So the next one here is, when it comes to investing in leadership and culture development, what criteria do you consider when determining the value of a course or training?
The amount of understanding and the amount of coherence and working together between a group. And you can, I think that a good course or a seminar is one that they are entering totally strangers. They're entering the room totally strangers, and they go out of the room like buddies and friends and comrades. And you, in the beginning, they are coming as individuals, and they are going out as a unit. So this, for me, would mark a good seminar. If you're speaking about a company that gives a seminar to managers in the company, or in a certain section in the company.
Next one, excuse me. Can you share your thoughts on the frequency of coaching sessions, weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, that would align best with your needs or those of your clients? So this is just the frequency of training for something more ongoing.
It depends. If it's really core issues and very heavy issues, I would think that once a month, to have a review about the core issues of the company, core issues of leadership, core issues of problems that the company faces or individuals in the company faces would be enough. And if it's strategically once a month, and if it's something that has to do with tactics, so I think once a week.
Right. Yeah, I'm kind of fond of sort of once a week as a minimum. I mean, since I'm mostly in my my greatest experiences in teaching English, anything less than once a week is sort of a profound waste of time. My phone, right? So I have that option, and I always tell them, I say, look, the truth is, the way your brain works, not just for language, but for anything, as often as possible is best. If you could do 5 days a week of English, you're going to get there way faster, even at the same time. It's like, if you want to do 10 minutes, 5 days a week for 50 minutes is way better than even 50 minutes once a week, or probably 100. So yeah, but the sort of regular thing is really important. Some people say, oh, well, we just want to do it every 2 weeks. It's like, understand that every 2 weeks means you remember basically nothing from your last session. So I agree that once a week is a good frequency with the tactic level stuff.
Yeah.
So the next one is, what types of ongoing, on-demand support or mentorship would be most beneficial? So this is outside the sort of context of the formal course, what we just talked about. Sometimes there's questions or problems or challenges of the people who are taking this learning. What would be the way to sort of fill the gaps and give as needed support of some type?
What I found out is that people, when you are gathering people in a class, it's less, how they call it, less educative, or it's not good as if you are doing, if you are giving them a task or giving them something to do together outside the class. You see, so
Okay.
I think that if we speak about that, the best would be to have your education or knowledge or things that you want to share with the people, but outside of a class, in a kind of game.
Right. So are you sort of talking less educational, more hands-on, the application of the knowledge, rather than, okay, we did the course, we got the book, and then they go and they do nothing different at work anyway?
Yeah, nowadays to give people numbers and data won't do. They don't need numbers and data. They have this, see, this, this.
Yeah.
Everything is there. You see, you don't need. I think that there is a radical change now, that people start to understand that they need a radical change in schools, because you don't need to give the students numbers and dates. You see, you just need to teach them how to learn themselves, where to find the knowledge, where to find the data by themselves.
Yeah, I understand. As a teacher, I feel the same way. I always tell my students, understand, don't memorize. I know students who can regurgitate a perfect speech with no flaws, except if somebody goes, hey, what's going on? They're paralyzed because they haven't studied a speech with that response. They don't have the flexibility to use it in the real world. They don't realize, hey, how's it going? Is just another way of saying hello or how are you. If I say, hi, how are you? They say, fine, thanks, and you. And nothing different. They never say, good, I'm hot, I'm sleepy, I'm tired, unless I prompt them to learn to do that. They have no flexibility because all they've learned is information, but they don't understand the information. They don't know what it means. So regarding this same question, so these are follow-on questions from the one I just asked. That is, so ideally, how often should that ongoing demand support mentorship happen? So this is in an ideal world. how available and how often should that support be available to them?
I think once a week as well. I would envision if people would gather together once a week and doing
Mm-hmm,
for 2 hours once a week a F.L.Y workshop, the
mm-hmm,
company would look different. The unit would look different. The company would look different. Why? Because they are doing things together. And
mm-hmm,
when you're doing a F.L.Y workshop, you can create your own art together. You can have
mm-hmm.
a big canvas and create your own art together. You can make the totem of the company together.
Right. Well, it puts me in mind specifically because this is my hobby. Excuse me for a sec. I do an activity called acro yoga, and there's three roles. There's the base, which is usually somebody holding another person's body above their head as they lay on the ground, a flyer who is doing poses and sort of acrobatic movements on the feet of the base, and a
Mhm.
spotter to make sure everybody is safe. And one of the beautiful team building properties of this is everybody does all three roles typically. When you're the base or the spotter, you have to care for the person who you're spotting or who you're basing, because their real physical safety is in your hands. So it's like a trust fall as far as team building, but it's like a trust fall on steroids, because you are caring for each other to accomplish what looks a little bit like sort of amateur Cirque du Soleil. And when people are more advanced, it looks pretty amazing, but anybody can do it at some level, which is why I think it's sort of like this amazing team building opportunity, though that's typically not what it's used for. It's just people like me who go, what a great way to exercise and just build a community that I want to spend time with. So the next one here then is, you're probably going to give the same answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. And that is, some people, when I say ideally, they give a different answer. So realistically, how often would it be practical and sustainable to offer this support? Because some people say, oh yeah, it'd be better to have like 724 support all the time, but realistically, you can't have your supervisors and
No,
mentors available
you can
like
have it.
that.
No, you can have it. I will say again that if you are dealing with strategy and big issues and big maintenance issues for individuals and the company, once a month would be enough, and tactics and just maintaining the spirit of the workers, the unit, the company once a week.
Right, right. Weekly for tactics. Okay. So the next one is, excuse me for a moment while I scroll up. How do you envision the course, or what we've talked about in terms of good ways to train, helping you address, or your clients address, specific cultural or leadership challenges within your organization or that of your clients?
First of all, I'm pro and I'm for every course and every seminar that would enrich um, my staff, me and my staff, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And personally, I really love reading and studying and knowing more and experiencing. I think that if you're speaking about a company, to know more is not enough, as I said before. You have to experience more, and the better is to experience more together, to experience more as a unit, to experience more as a department, to experience more as a company. And this is aligned with the core essence of the company. If the company is about giving service, so you need to train and to speak and to develop this knowledge about service along the chain of the company.
Okay. Next one is, considering the potential impact on your organization, what pricing model, one-time payment, monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, yearly, would you find most appealing for training like this, or uh, the same thing, of course, with your client organization? So which one of those pricing models do you think would be more beneficial to yourself or your client organizations in terms of the pricing?
I would say that if it's a one-time delivery,
Mm-hmm.
and one time, for example, we hire a certain kind of specialist that will speak about marketing, and it's
Mm-hmm.
and we are doing it once, so we are paying per lecture.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if you're doing one lecture or two lectures, we pay for one lecture or two lectures. But if it's something ongoing and we know that we have a 1 week session and then a bigger session once a month, so I would prefer to a monthly fee that I know
Mm-hmm.
that every month I dedicate this amount of money for this purpose.
Right. Oh, suddenly it stopped working. I just want to add to my own reply or the notes from yourself. So yeah, so monthly if it was ongoing, yeah? Monthly for now. I'm a little worried that I didn't do this, and it's just because I'm a forgetful guy, ADHD and all that. I did ask you if it was okay to share this out over social media, yeah? I think so.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
No
good,
problem.
good. I didn't think it was an issue, but it was just like, did I ask that question? Okay, so last one, and that is considering the potential, actually, there's two more. Considering the potential impact on your organization. Oh, we already did that one. We're already done. Okay, so very last one, and this isn't really part of the interview. It's just one that I want to ask for sort of my own ends, and that is, who do you know who might benefit or be interested in having an interview like this with me?
Share with me the interview, and I will share it with my friends, and whoever would be interested, I'll let you know.
So it's going to be, I'm going to guess a week, because like literally I'm doing typically a couple interviews a day. So it's not going to be immediate. There are some there already. If you're interested in looking at those, otherwise I'll just wait until I've posted yours on YouTube and other places, and then I'll share that with you. Is that what you
Yeah,
would
no
prefer?
problem.
Excellent. So then I'll share specifically yours once I've actually put it out there into the digital ether.
Great.
So if there's anything else you want to add, any wisdom about leadership and culture, great. If not, that's kind of the interview tied up in a pretty bow.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for your time, Ted. I really appreciate it. Take care.